He who defends everything defends nothing. Famous words of Frederick the Great, words that reflect on the Jedi Order of the prequel era quite nicely. Because that's what they were attempting to do, to defend the peace in the entire galaxy on their own without enough numbers or support to even attempt to accomplish this task. They were spread too thinly, lost in their traditions, subservient to corrupted Senate, stagnant in their philosophy, restrictive in their thinking, self-righteous in their conviction. The Jedi Order fell long before the Purge, long before the Order 66. The pride of those so humble warrior monks was their folly. It was under their watch that the situation in the Outer Rim deteriorated to the point that civil war, a rebellion, was preferable to loyalty to the Senate. The Jedi themselves, once living myths and legends, became sources of nightmares. Order that was nothing more but the dogs of the Senate, in the eyes of the people of the Outer Rim. But what would happen if a new force appeared in the galaxy? One of martial might, strong conviction and decisive approach when dealing with evil. One that, while claiming to be good, often walked in the dark to do what had to be done. How would the Jedi Order react to the appearance of the Tau Empire? Did you enjoy this little intro? I hope you did. To my own surprise, the vote on Patreon didn't go the way I expected. Rather than exploration of possible relationship between the Tau Empire and the Galactic Republic, my supporters voted to look at a potential relation between the Tau Empire and the Jedi Order. If you want to take part in the voting, the $1 tier supporters get the power to do so. You can also get access to some additional content. I would be grateful if you joined our growing community. I would also ask you to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, the whole shtick. You know what to do. With that out of the way, let's get to the main discussion for today. So, the relation between the Jedi Order and the Tau Empire would be quite fascinating, especially because it would most likely be the Jedi to be first to establish contact with newly arrived Tau. Now to clarify, in the previous video I said that Tau getting transported around the Phantom Menace would be optimal, but after some discussions in the comments I see I need to make a slight adjustment. Let's get the Tau Empire transported into the Star Wars universe right between the Phantom Menace and the Attack of the Clones. If we go before that, things get way too complicated. So, for the sake of this and future videos, let's say that they arrived in the Star Wars galaxy 5 years before the Attack of the Clones. This should give just enough time for everyone to figure out their place in the galaxy, but also to not mess with long ongoing plans and schemes, so the sudden appearance of a Tau will have more impact. As for where the Tau Empire shows up, we go with a previous placement, mirroring their position in the Warhammer 40k galaxy. Maybe adjusting them a bit to be slightly below or above the galactic disk, in the wild space proper. I have seen people proposing that I could place them anywhere I wanted. But where is the fun in that? That mirrored position is great for narrative purposes, so I will stick to it. Speaking of narration, our story begins like many others, in the far, far future, in the galaxy far, far away. In the Milky Way galaxy, to be precise. A massive warp storm engulfs the Tau Empire just as they try to launch the fourth sphere of expansion. Suddenly, they are thrown across time, space, and reality, ending up in the Star Wars galaxy. They are confused, surrounded by unknown stars, and as they wonder what the hell happened, their arrival, of course, doesn't remain unnoticed by the wider galaxy. In fact, it would cause quite the stir. Suddenly, a lot of stars show up on the map unannounced. Maybe their arrival causes some gravitic waves that disturb local hyperspace lanes or cut off some systems as their old navigational data becomes useless. Everyone wants answers, especially the Republic Senate, who, as incompetent as they are, would most likely want to know what is going on. Not to mention our friendly neighborhood Chancellor, Chief Palpatine, would like to know what happened in his galaxy. In this period, there is only one force that can be reliably tasked to investigate something like this. And so, a task force of Jedi made out of warriors, diplomats, pilots, and navigators is sent into the Outer Rim to investigate the strange anomaly and newly appeared star systems. Thanks to hyperdrive, and with Jedi specialized in navigation, they should reach one of the outlying new systems in a relatively short amount of time. And what would they see? Well-developed planets, orbital defense stations, and orbital cities. Elements of the Tau Empire's merchant and protection fleets, with vessels dwarfing the majority of those built in this age of the Republic. The Jedi would most likely reach one of the two septs, the tenacious Furios or Lucky Ximien. Either way, they would be quite shocked by what they see, just as the Tau would be seeing a rather minuscule vessel appearing in their star system. The Jedi would be responsible for the first contact between the Galactic Republic and the Tau Empire. From that point forward, one faction would measure the other, trying to figure out if they are friend or foe. And there would be a lot of things to measure indeed, especially since both sides would want to paint themselves in the best light possible. You could imagine Jedi like Obi-Wan Kenobi and water-caste diplomats strike and parry with words to get as much information from the other as possible. Some of you might think that this narration is a bit much, but it is important. Because in this scenario, both sides get first-hand experience and information about the other. The Jedi never heard of the upstart Tau on the eastern fringe, and the Tau never heard the tales of mythical Jedi Knights, so, initially at least, their perspective of one another is untainted. So, what would they see? The Tau would see a multi-species order of psykers who serve, seemingly, the galactic government, an order who takes many roles, but mostly that of peacekeepers of the entire galaxy. A task they were accomplishing for millennia with varying degree of success. But it would be something that the Tau would respect. And seeing how this Republic sent these Jedi to meet them, they would treat them the best they can. No reason to start on the wrong foot when you find yourself in a new galaxy. But what of a Jedi? Well, you could say they would have mixed feelings. On one hand, they would find a prosperous civilization and post-scarcity society. No homeless people, no starvation, peace, harmony, and stability. On the other hand, there is the matter of not insignificant militarization of a Tau society, military propaganda, the caste system. Not only the division between the Tau themselves, but also the fact that all non-Tau are treated as second-class citizens. But while this is true, even if second-class, they still have a roof over their heads and food on their table. As much as the Jedi would want to criticize the Tau, they wouldn't have much to stand on, seeing the current state of the Republic, and the Outer Rim especially. After all, as long as what you do doesn't go against the principles of a greater good, which promotes selflessness, harmony, and cooperation, you can do basically anything in the Tau Empire. Furthermore, the Tau follow many principles that the Jedi do. Tau Va, the greater good, has 5 main virtues: integrity, knowledge, righteousness, altruism, and propriety. Alongside them, there are 4 accompanying minor virtues: filial piety, loyalty, steadfastness, and patience. There are 3 heroic traits: strength, courage, and resilience. There are 2 complementary states: stillness and action. There is 1 unifying truth. All is in the Ni, and the Ni is in all, which can be translated to all is in life, and life is in all. And there is the promise of a Tau Va: unity and equilibrium, and progress and growth. I'm sure that as you listened to those elements of Tau philosophy, you could realize that there are many similarities between it and the philosophy of the Jedi. Integrity, knowledge, righteousness, altruism, propriety, all are virtues shared by the Jedi. Similarly, the Jedi know the importance of knowing when to act and when to remain passive, just as the Tau do. The Jedi promote detachment from emotion, materialism, and personal ambition. The Tau have a term, Iaquim, the silence, a state of ridding yourself of self-centeredness, greed, and personal ambition, empty within, but upright without, one of the highest states of enlightenment among this species. Not to mention their collectivist mindset, where everything they do should be for the sake of a society and the wider empire, not themselves. And, of course, there is the unifying truth. All is in the Ni, and the Ni is in all. All is in life, and life is in all. Not that different from teachings of a Jedi about the Force, isn't it? Obi-Wan Kenobi said it himself. The Force is what gives a Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us, penetrates us, and binds the galaxy together. You could say that the Force is in life, and life is in the Force. So clearly, there are some major similarities in how they view the world and the universe at large. But of course, there are also big differences between the two. The Jedi value individual thought and free will far more than the Tau. The Tau promote collectivism and see that if any individual stands on the way of a greater good, well, that obstacle needs to be removed. Furthermore, the Tau more or less impose their beliefs on others. Not all, of course. The Tau do not force others to adopt their caste system, for example. But you are only good if you follow their greater good. Both value the idea of balance But unlike the Jedi, the idea of balance is coupled with idea of control. And while the Tau subscribe to the whole detachment from materialism thing, they are still inherently emotional beings. Tali Sera, the ritual of bonding, is very important to the Tau. To mark one another as soulmates, as part of a greater whole, a family you choose in a way. The state of emptiness I described earlier is the highest state of enlightenment, a goal usually reserved for the highest leadership. For most, simply following the teachings of a Tau Va is enough. I am not going to pretend that there are no Tau who aren't ambitious or don't want to climb the ranks to prove themselves as useful members of a society and to the Tau Va. With all that in mind, I can confidently say that the Jedi wouldn't see the Tau Empire as inherently evil or malicious, but they would be quite concerned in how the Tau enforce their way of life. Add to that re-education camps and possible mind control, and many Jedi would be more than a little bit concerned about those newcomers to this galaxy. Assuming they would find out about those camps in a quick manner. Though, if you think of it, when push comes to shove, the Jedi were ready to sacrifice quite a lot of their integrity and beliefs for the sake of victory. They were okay with using a slave army, after all. So maybe this dark side of the greater good wouldn't be as big of a deal breaker as some might suspect. At their core, the Jedi believe in personal enlightenment, when the Tau believe in collective enlightenment, even at the great cost. This is where their ways of viewing the world and how one should act split, creating both conflict and potential narrative. The Jedi would most likely see the Tau as potential allies and potential enemies in equal measure. Powerful allies at that, but ones that could transform into one of the most resilient enemies yet. Unlike the Sith, the Tau do not suffer from infighting and constant backstabbing. And unlike the Mandalorians, their warriors aren't rulers, so they aren't lost in the eternal war with no diplomacy to speak of. Much would rely on the Senate and Palpatine, as the Jedi Order serves the Republic. If the Republic sees the Tau Empire as potential threat, like it or not, the Jedi would need to view them that way as well. And I have no doubt that neither senators nor Palpatine would see those upstart Tau as friendly neighbors, but as potential rivals. Most of the core senators at least would. I'm sure that the nearby systems would be ready to shake hands with the Tau in the name of combating piracy, slavery, and criminal enterprises ravaging the Outer Rim. And while the official stance of the Jedi Order would follow that of the Senate, many Jedi within the Order wouldn't agree with that. In fact, the further we go in the timeline, the greater probability that some Jedi would leave the Order to join the Tau Empire. Count Dooku said it best. The Jedi Order's problem is Yoda. No being can wield that kind of power for centuries without becoming complacent at best or corrupt at worst. He has no idea that it's overtaken him. He no longer sees all the little cumulative evils that the Republic tolerates and fosters, from slavery to endless wars, and he never asks, why are we not acting to stop this? live alongside corruption for too long, and you no longer notice the stench. That's one of the major failings of the Order, one that Tau would confront. I can't see a reality where the Tau don't launch anti-slavery and anti-piracy actions around their territories, challenging not only criminals, but even the Huts themselves, offering security and prosperity to neighboring systems in exchange for close diplomatic cooperation. A soft expansion, one where the star systems are part of the Empire in all but name. Many Jedi would see the contrast between that and the inaction of the Republic. Some more idealistic Jedi could outright leave the Order to support Tau efforts in the Outer Rim. If the Tau Empire was transported into the Star Wars galaxy before the Phantom Menace, there is a chance that someone like Count Dooku himself would join forces with them rather than let himself be manipulated by Darth Sidious. Thankfully, in the timeline we speak of, Count Dooku is already on his way to become the leader of the CIS, so there is no way he would join the Tau. On the other hand, Anakin Skywalker is still very much a member of the Order. He is getting influenced by Sidious, but he isn't in his net just yet. He also isn't in a relationship with Padme Amidala, so there are fewer strings keeping him in the Republic. Now that's a thought, isn't it? Anakin had very strong feelings about slavery as an ex-slave himself. The Jedi Order did nothing to challenge slavers in the Outer Rim, which irritated the young Jedi to no end. How would he react to the news that Tau Empire began to hunt those despicable slavers? How would he react to the news of freed slaves finding a new home in the Tau Empire? Maybe the young Padawan would leave the Jedi Order for a chance to help the Tau in liberation of Tatooine from Hutt oppression. After all, we all have seen what Anakin did to avenge his mother. I wonder what he would be ready to do in order to save her. But let's leave that thought behind for now, because here comes the real kicker: the Clone Wars. While Disney didn't explore this subject too much, in Legends we have multiple examples of Jedi leaving the Order or front lines in protest to the Clone Wars and their role in them. Many Jedi were disgusted with how reckless the clones were with their lives, and how the Jedi Order didn't address usage of a slave army to serve the Republic. With that, an interesting narrative potential appears. That of renegade, light-side Jedi who abandon the Republic and aren't tempted by promises of the dark side and the Sith, but rather join forces with the Tau Empire. In the Disney canon, we usually see Jedi that betray the Republic. Pong Krell did so to become Dooku's apprentice, for the sake of personal power. Barriss Offee decided to become a terrorist, to show her dissatisfaction with the decisions and actions of the Jedi Order. Only Ahsoka Tano left the Order for personal reasons, though that is only half accurate. She was kicked out and simply didn't return when given a chance to do so. There is a difference between leaving the Order willingly as a full member and leaving it after the Order called you a traitor, kicked you out, and then offered a half-ass apology. In Legends, while we had examples of Jedi betraying the Republic or joining the Sith, a lot of them simply abandoned the Jedi Order to live in seclusion, away from the war. With the scenario of the Tau Empire being a factor, this could be explored to a greater degree. Because the Tau Empire would call out both the Republic and the Jedi Order for failing in protecting the peace in the galaxy. Furthermore, they would actively fight with the evil of slavery and piracy in the Outer Rim. The same way many neutral systems could ask the Tau for protection in order to be safe from warmongering of either CIS or the Republic. It's ironic, but even though Tau Empire is a Warhammer 40k faction, they aren't warmongers. Usually, at least. They are patient and more than fine in playing the long game, ensuring loyalty of worlds long before they are officially integrated into the Empire. Despite many ideological differences, some Jedi could see the Tau as better alternative to either the Jedi Order or promises of power from Dooku. There they could create a new organization of Force users. Something that could prove especially beneficial since there are many psychic species in the Tau Empire who would add their own philosophy and knowledge to the mix. Yes, I know that technically being Force sensitive and being a Psyker ain't the same thing. But in this case, I'm going with a fun with too much time interpretation that they are similar abilities and that the Force is just the Sea of Souls before it was twisted into the warp. There is also a matter that from a narrative standpoint, it doesn't make much sense to keep those two types of abilities separate. So, here is my conclusion. The Jedi Order would have a mixed feelings about the Tau Empire and would most likely be opposed to it because of the influence of the Senate and good old Palpatine. They could see them as potential ally, but also as potential threat. Even if a war between the Republic and the Tau Empire would break out, I don't see the Jedi viewing the Tau Empire as inherently evil. They aren't in the same category of evil as war-obsessed Mandalorians or Sith, after all. The Jedi themselves wouldn't necessarily be against the Tau Empire, and some of them could potentially join them, seeing them as better alternative to the corrupted Republic and Sith-controlled CIS. And with that, a probability of establishment of a completely new organization of Force users, made not only by the disillusioned Jedi, but psychic species that are part of the Tau Empire, is very much feasible. Something akin to Night Sisters of Dathomir, but more light side aligned. A new source of headaches for Palpatine, I'm sure. I challenge you to come up with a name for an organization that the Jedi Renegates would establish in the Tau Empire. Write it in the comments below. And if you have any questions or counters to my exploration to this idea, you can put them in the comments as well. I intend to explore a few additional crossover scenarios and ideas in the Star Wars galaxy. Maybe even write some kind of mini-narrated story. So wait for that as well. On top of all that, I would kindly ask you to like, comment, subscribe and ring-ding that bell. If you can, support me on Patreon, where you get access to voting power and a lot of additional content. I think that's it for today. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed. Now, my dear viewers and listeners, remember, wherever you are, whatever you do, try to enjoy yourself while you can. I wish you most heretical day. Ta-ta!